Welcome. Welcome to Creative Arts Apothecary. I'm your host, Marina Tselner, and I'm so happy to introduce my guest, Elle Ingalls. Elle helps high achieving professionals achieve even more without stress-induced burnout. She is the creator of the pressure-free method. It's an on-the-go stress management method that you can use anywhere, anytime. This is the ultimate work smarter, not harder formula. And with her expertise on the fight or flight stress response, she will show how to de-stress without having to slow down or take time off for enhanced cognitive and physical performance. Elle draws on her experience as a performance coach, executive, professional musician, community leader, and parent of three grown sons, plus her 3 degrees from the University of Michigan, to help you break the stress cycle and experience your full potential. Elle, welcome.
Hi, Marina. So great to be
Hi.
here.
Oh, so good to speak with you. We were just talking about this. I'm so excited to connect with you again. We met each other. We were on this amazing, awesome breakthrough, intense leadership experience. It was very cool and so much growth and expansion and we connected like privately, or like and there's a strong connection. It was so memorable because you were like, you're a creative, I'm a creative. And they're kind of like, I mean, and I know, like we're all creative, everybo's creative. But like
Correct. Yes.
when like that's like your focus or a big focus of your life, it kind of gives you this different insight. So there was like
Yeah.
it was a school, and then you're like, this is really awesome. And can I help you with this? Can I make it awesome and pressure free for you? And I was like, what? Tell me more. How do you make something awesome and intense, awesome and pressure free? How do you do that?
How do you do that? In fact, it is the secret to making it even more awesome.
Mm.
And that's what we're going to do tonight. That's what I'm going to share with you. So,
Fantastic. Yeah. So stay tuned. We're going to get to know you a little bit more, just to the audience, and then stay tuned for these tips, these real hands-on action steps that you can take to experience a more pressure-free wherever you are in life. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself first and the creative
yeah.
journey that brought you here?
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. From the time I was a really little girl, I wanted to be an orchestra conductor. I used to stand on top of boxes and conduct, right? Like 4 or 5 years old. It was about 4.5. The box broke through and I sliced open my lip. And that's like the only time I've had to go to the emergency room when I was 4. And so my lower lip is a little bigger because I actually had like 13 stitches down in there.
Whoa.
So it's just a little girl. But that was a dream that I had. And by the time I was 10, I'd been playing violin for quite a while. I just knew I wanted to be a professional musician. And I was playing in an adult string quartet by the time I was 12. I was, starting competitions, and I ended up going to the University of Michigan in music. I started actually in phys ed in music, which is kind of interesting, but I'm also an athletic coach. And so I started really delving into my violin. And then I became really enamored with conducting. And one of my first conducting professors, actually my very first one, it was like a month into the class, and he called me into his office and he says, "You have talent. And I think that you should consider actually designing your own curriculum for your undergrad." And he got me into this program where I could design my own curriculum and really take some graduate level conducting courses before finishing my undergrad. So he really believed in me. You don't know what I mean? When you're a creative and you have someone believe in you, it's so exciting. And then it took me 2 years of auditing. I got permission to audit into the graduate level seminar at Michigan. It's an international program. They take 3 people a year, at least back then they did, from all over the world. And so they had never accepted a woman, ever.
Wow.
So bold me, I'm like, well, I will be the first, right?
So cool.
So I worked and I studied and I worked And to get in, I put together a small orchestra to play a piece by Schubert and Mozart. And I had the orchestration just right so I could get the people I needed in the room. And I was still not a graduate student. Many of them were the top students at Michigan, like all now professionals all over the world. And I asked them to play for me, and they did. So not only play for me, but they had to rehearse with me. I had to practice, you know? So we did a couple rehearsals, and then they played in front of the professors with me. And I'll never forget it. Afterwards, the head professor who would make the decision whether or not to accept me, he pulled me back to his office. He was from Switzerland, and he goes, "Well, Miss Starrett," he goes, "we have a lot of work to do." Like that. But how the hell did you get those people to play for you? He was like so interested in how I brought these people, you know, got them to actually play for me. And to him, that was a sign of leadership. You know, you and I were in leadership together. And I think it goes into that idea of full belief. So that's something that I coach my clients. When you desire something, when you want something to happen in your life, you need to move into full belief for it in order for it to really take place. And so many times there's these little hitches that will prevent us from stepping into that full belief. That is the work that I do, really. And if I'd love to just teach my method right up front here to your listeners. And
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah,
go
sure.
for it. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I created this method when my oldest two sons were on a baseball team, and they wanted me to coach their team in my mental toughness tips that I taught my violin students in them for performance. And I thought they were joking, like who wants their mother in the dugout? But they were serious. And when I took the ideas to the coaches, the head coach actually hired me to be his private coach. And then my department chair at the college where I taught violin and viola for years, she found out what I was doing and literally grabbed her checkbook and says, "How much is this? I need this." And she wrote a check. So in 2010, I created this method, instituted it into our family with our sons. And really, it changed all of our lives. It changed my life radically. I mentioned violin competitions. When I was 13, I had my first big one. My hands broke out in eczema, but this hand in particular had cracked and bleeding knuckles for 35 years. And in 2010, 8 weeks of using the method I'm about to share with you, my hands completely cleared up. I could touch the skin on this knuckle for the first time in 35 years. I cried. And then I used to have bands of stress acne and stress fat in my torso. That's all gone. Like, and I'm thinking, okay, if that fat's gone, then my arteries are clear. You know, what is possible here? And I'm just going to mention this too, because to me, I feel like I saved my life, but my mother died of breast cancer, and I always had dense fibrous tissue, which is a precursor. And in 2010, using this method, in 8 weeks' time, my breast tissues completely changed, like completely changed. So this method, I thought that I was just going to help people, baseball players and violinists, perform better. But the ramifications for one's mental and physical health are truly limitless. And I say that because I've watched it happen time and time again with my clients, diseases they've had their whole life, things that they've struggled with so much, free up. That's why I call it pressure free for a reason, because no matter what pressures come your way, because we're all going to be under pressures and challenges, but if you can stay free of triggering the fight or flight stress response and releasing stress hormones, your body and mind can function extremely well. So that's what I am going to teach you tonight. Teach you a little bit about fight or flight and how to actually break this. I refer to this as a stress cycle because it's far more than just a little adrenaline shooting through your veins. It's much deeper than that. So step one are targets. If you're taking notes, targets. So targets are, what are you aiming for? So for example, maybe you want to be able to speak in public without getting butterflies. Or maybe you want to not get a certain disease. Maybe you want to have a better relationship with someone. Maybe you are aiming to build a business and you need this kind of income coming into your family. So what is it that you want to have happen? Most of the time, people's targets come in three types, performance types: health types, both mental health and physical health, and relationship. So between workers, between coworkers, between family members. And honestly, sometimes I will have people say, Elle, you know what? I just want to feel happier. I'm so tired of anxiety. I'm so tired of depression. And I just want to feel happier. And I love that reason. I really love it. And I always encourage people to shoot for the moon with your targets, because we have to aim past in order to actually hit. So really open up tonight. This could be like your chance, or whenever you're watching this, your chance to just open up the possibility that something could change for you, even something you've had your whole life, because the stress hormones are responsible for keeping you locked in anxiety, depression, in all of that. And so when you can start to open that up, it's really interesting what can happen. So what are your targets? If you come up with a couple, I like to say just like 3 to 5 main targets that you're aiming for, that's your fuel to do the next 2 steps. The second step are triggers. So triggers are anything that cause you to feel tension in your body, causes your jaw to tighten, maybe your face to tighten, your shoulders to come up. Maybe your tension is even in your feet. You coil your toes up in your shoes, or you coil up this way. So where are you feeling tension in your body? And anything that makes you feel these emotions: angry or annoyed, anxious or afraid, ashamed, and any sort of abuse. And by abuse, I don't just mean physical or even verbal abuse, but slight things. I'm very environmentally sensitive. And as a professional musician, like you just noticed, I could hear a stove clicking and I've got headphones in, right? In a whole other room. So sounds to me are definitely triggers. I have to be careful and make sure I'm vigilant to not trigger the stress response when I hear any sorts of sounds, like water running or the leaf blowers this time of year. Anything like that is definitely something that could trigger my stress response. For some people, it's how things feel on their skin, or how things smell. Like certain smells may trigger you. I had a young man, how old was he? He was only 10, I think, when I coached him. And he triggered when he could smell like burning butter in a fry pan. That smell would trigger his stress response. So you map out your triggers. And if you're writing down these triggers that make you feel these things, I encourage you not to get overwhelmed, because it could be a lot of things. And we really just want to focus on just a couple at a time. Be gentle with yourself, because some of us do have a lot of things that will cause us to feel those emotions. The other one too is anytime you feel overexcited. So overexcitement will cause you to release your stress hormones just as much as anything else, which is why, if you have children and they get overexcited, people say, oh, they'll sleep all tonight. You're like, oh, it's going to take forever to get them to bed, because they're overstimulated and they've triggered the stress response. And there's a second flood of hormones that goes out that actually includes your wake-up drug. So you will stay awake when you really want to sleep. Or depending on the timing, you'll get to sleep, but at 2 or 3 a.m., you're wide awake. So one of the biggest benefits of using my method for my clients is they get real quality sleep. When they wake up in the morning, they feel energized. They don't even have to hit the alarm. They're up. They feel good. They feel happy. So one way to think about it is your biology is affecting your psychology, and vice versa. So we need to work on both of them to be healthy people. And most psychologists are only working on the psychology. But I work on your biology. We're going to stop stress at its source, at the adrenal glands. So that gets to step 3. Step 3 are, and I'll give you more after I give you these steps too, but step 3 are tools and the 10-second solution. So when I'm coaching a client or a group in a long-term contract, I have over 40 tools that I teach to help you interrupt the stress response. I'm going to give you a couple tonight, but the real secret is the timing. For example, most of us know, take a long, slow breath if you're stressed, but we miss the timing. If you've already released the stress hormones, first of all, you might think this is a long breath. not even a full second. But
Mm.
when you're adrenalized, everything speeds up. Plus, not only did I not take a long enough breath, but I didn't understand, okay, I've got to interrupt and not release the stress hormones if I'm going to stay stress-free. So taking a long, slow breath will slow your heart rate down, but the damage is already done. And the damage is serious. And I just want to share a few things. It takes me a really long time to give it all, but just a few things that I think would be helpful, especially for creatives, people who are really looking to unleash their deepest gifts and talents. That's what I'm always talking about with my violin students. It's like, my job as your instructor is like unleash you so you can bring your gifts out with no fear and no fear of judgment and all those things that bollocks us up. So when we trigger these stress hormones and go into fight or flight for whatever reason, your amygdala in your head tells your heart rate to charge up and your little adrenal glands release a flood of hormones. It's a little cocktail. So I like to say you are now under the influence. And because they're called catecholamines. The big one is adrenaline, but it is a little cocktail that creates all sorts of effects in your body to allow you to fight or run away. Or you may freeze like a deer or a bunny, and then you'll run. You might fidget, but maybe you're a leg jiggler, or you chew your nails, or you're picking your cuticles and you've got fidgety stuff going on. You're clicking a pen all the time in your meetings. Yeah, fidgety stuff, right? Those fidget balls, like, actually, I think all of those things should be banned because all they do is encourage you to do that behavior.
Mm.
Why would anybody think? No, we got to back it up and not release the stress hormones. If I used to be a leg jiggler for sure and a cuticle picker, and not triggering the stress response, my legs never jiggle anymore. They don't. It's just like so cool to finally have control. I have people, adults, who don't even know how to cut their nails because they've never had them.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to cut my fingernails. I've never had them. So it's funny. I had to cut mine because I'm a violinist. So, but it's kind of funny to have that problem because their nails actually are beautiful now.
Mm.
So a couple things for the brain when we're talking creativity. When you go into fight or flight, your cortex and your hippocampus shut down somewhat. That's why if you're in a social situation and you meet someone, 5 seconds later, you've forgotten their name. We're not stupid people. Like, why does that happen? It's because that area of the brain is shut down. So you can't actually lodge a memory correctly. And when most of the time when we have something traumatic happen, we're not lodging that memory correctly at all.
Mm.
And then when we revisit it, because shame is lodged in a lot of our past memories and anxiety, and those memories come back, we revisit them, fictionalize it again because we're in fight or flight when we remember it.
Mm.
So it becomes a really convoluted story that if we could just go back in time and actually see it, we might have seen a totally different event than what happened. I'm not saying it's better or worse, but it would be very different. So I love to untangle that for people. So your brain, when you stay pressure-free, you have full cognitive ability in a way that is so extraordinary. So as a musician, I can memorize music in minutes that used to take me months. I can't even believe what's happening now for my brain. And my brain is 60. It is not a young brain. And so it's like when you can watch, I coached someone who was 80 too. Like an old dog can learn new tricks. It's the functioning when we feel like we're not functioning well here. It is a fight or flight situation. It's not your brain. You're not in your, what I call your real brain. You're not your real self. In fact, the B behaviors we move into are things like this. We're very bitchy. We're bossy. We bully people. We don't even mean to. Or we blame, we finger point. Oh, it's his fault I don't have my degree, or the kid's fault I haven't gotten this project done, or the house is so messy, or whatever it is. Like we're trying to find the answers. Or we binge alcohol, weed. We're looking to feel good. We binge entertainment because we're trying to feel good. When you're pressure free, you don't need to binge anything because you already feel good. And it's interesting to me that people that don't understand what I do and how I live now Many of them don't understand me. Like, they do not understand me. To me, the world is beautiful. It's so beautiful.
Absolutely.
It's so interesting to to kind of be misunderstood that way. It's just because it's kind of the way I've always lived, but it's definitely heightened now that I have full faculty here. So think about that as a creative. In fact, I always thought of myself as a recreative artist, as a conductor, as a violinist. I wrote a few compositions and little counter melodies and things, but nothing really like a big composition, which I would think of as creative. But in 2016, so 6 years into living pressure free, I wrote a 600-page novel. It's not published yet because I'm now devolving it into 6 other novels. It's insane. I've written 2 screenplays. I have like 4 screenplays in my head right now that I want my sons to produce in their video production company. Like, if anyone would have told me that I would have written 600 pages of a novel, and that's like 8.5 by 11, right? I mean, if you chunk it out, it's probably like 1,000-page book. So my brain got unleashed.
Yeah.
And that is just so phenomenal. Another thing that happens is our senses are dulled. So when you go into fight or flight, you don't hear very well. If you have someone that you've given a direction to, like, don't forget to take out the garbage or something like that, and they completely forget, they were probably in fight or flight when you told them. They couldn't lodge the memory of what you said to them. And then we get upset and angry because this thing didn't happen, right? And it just creates such havoc in our homes. I actually wrote a book, I have it here, Pressure Free Parenting. I wrote a parenting book because I had parents in 2020 who said, we need help, Elle. So I thought, oh, my coach was having a 90-day, write a book in 90 days. So I wrote a book in 90 days.
Awesome. Yeah.
I mean, there's so much misunderstanding in families,
Mhm.
all derived from this fight or flight deal. All chronic disease, mental and physical, there's a direct correlation to the stress response, to the stress hormones. It either causes it or makes it worse. So anything that you have or have had or have in your family, you can open up possibility for healing at a level that is extraordinary. I've watched it happen in hundreds of people, and it's really because of fight or flight. So I'm going to give you some tools. Do you have any questions first? Because I've just been kind of going here.
Oh yeah, no, I love it. Bring it. Thank you. I'm just taking it all in.
It's a
all of
lot, I
it.
know.
Fantastic. It's fantastic. Yeah.
It's
Really good
it's
stuff.
it's real to me. It is the missing piece for the study of psychology.
Hmm.
Nobody talks about this way as deeply as I do. And to me, it is the model we need for the 21st century, because our current model is not working. Throwing drugs and throwing therapy. I've worked with people who've been in therapies for years and on drugs for years. And in 8 weeks or so, 6 to 8 weeks, we break their anxiety and depression. Like, it's over. And it doesn't mean they won't have a bad day. But one of my current clients, I mean, he just can't believe this is his life. It makes me cry. He's 37 and he has a whole new life. And he just can't even believe this is his life now. So it's really cool to free people up. It is my work and it is my calling. I never knew I would talk about hormones all the time, but I do. I thought that was a bad word when I was a little girl. So
Oh, funny. Yeah, I know. It sounds like
right?
you've made friends with them. So
I have
you
made
you
friends
work
with that word.
you work together. How do you what do we do with our hormones? How
Yeah.
do we optimize our learning, our being
Yeah.
present and grounded, and you're
All
not
of
saying
that.
like take time off life and just
No,
like you get like you
that's
keep
a total
living,
myth.
right? Yeah,
That
yeah.
is a total myth. It's a complete myth. If especially a high achieving person, if you tell them to slow down or take time off, that will probably stress them.
Hmm.
It really will, because if you give them time off, they'll probably like take a course online, or they're going to do something because their amazing brain wants to do something. Taking time off and slowing down is dulling your life. It's not necessary. if that's the kind of person you are, and most of my clients are high achievers from age 10 to age 80, like they're all, people who want to create a beautiful world and do neat things and explore and take risks, and they just want to have a beautiful life. And so that's a total myth, if to have to slow down or take time off. It's a total myth. All you need to do is not release the stress hormones. So in that 10-second window, you can ask yourself, what can I do in that 10-second window to prevent the heart rate from going up, prevent the release of the adrenal glands? What can I do? So I'm going to give you a couple tools. My tools are so simple. Well, I have simple ones and then more complex ones, because for some of my clients, like, stress is so endemic. It's like you were stressing out when you were inside your mother, because we reacted to sounds, smells, like we reacted to everything she was reacting to. Every time she triggered fight or flight, we triggered fight or flight. So we were coming out into the world already with the stress response built into us in this way. And for some of us, it was really hard, like really serious.
And it's multi-generational, right? Especially
Multi-generational.
Women specifically, like that when in utero, you're developing your ovaries already. So that's like,
yes,
you're in your grandmother, like,
yes,
you're already developing.
We're already developing in our
but,
grandmother. Yes, I love that. I love that. Oh my gosh. Let's see, when did we start? There's a beautiful thing. I heard it on Radio Lab, I think. It was on gonads. And apparently a beautiful chamber is created when we are just first forming, and cells pass through the chamber. Only certain ones are chosen to be the egg cells. The other ones pass through to become whatever else, right? And it's like, I think it's the reason why we've built cathedrals. It's because we had this cellular experience of going into this beautiful big chamber that was only certain cells got to stay, right? So,
wow.
To me, it's magical, it's really form follows function. Why do we create some of the things we create? It's because we somehow felt these things, So I love that you bring that forward. It's multi-generational, and our habits of reactions are generations old. Not just our parents and caregivers, but anyone who influenced us, teachers, professors, coaches, peers, like the mean girl thing. If the girl, like, in charge of the little group went, "Oh, I can't believe you're wearing orange," then all the other girls get the same face. "Oh, she's wearing orange." Like we all imitate. So we create these habits of reaction. And to me, it's like when you get gum in your hair, and we've got to like carefully pull all the tanglement out of it. That's what habits of reaction are. They're so engrossed in us and so entangled, more so for certain people than others. So now that I messed my hair up, so here are some tools to use in that 10-second solution. My tools come in 3 types: body tools, mind tools, and life design tools. And I can never predict which tools are going to work best for my clients, so I give them all 40. Like, I just give them over 40, because we've got to match their personality and their situations and their triggers to these particular tools. A very simple tool is just to put a hand on your belly and relax your abs. So when you relax your abs deeply, you actually tell your brain that you're okay. That's powerful. It's a simple neuroscience trick, but our abs are our body armor for our lower organs. And when your abs are tight, your throat will also be tight. So this whole front of the body is tight. Not only is it body armor, but now you're pushing people away from you. People will be repelled by you just because you're holding the front of your body tightly. So when you relax your abs, you send a totally different message to your own brain and to everybody else that you are freed up, which is such a beautiful thing. So that's a very simple tool. You can use it anywhere, anytime. No one needs to know you're doing it. You're just relaxing your abs. So my husband, going back there. So that's a real simple body tool, example of a body tool. I'll give you a couple examples of mind tools, because a simple one is just a smile. So when the corners of your mouth go up you keep dopamine flowing in your brain. And dopamine is a yeah, dopamine is a neurotransmitter required for that cortex and hippocampus to work. So if you're not smiling, your brain is like, it's neutral. But if you smile just a little bit, you kick just enough dopamine to allow it to continue to work here. That is powerful. It's super powerful. So and by just smiling, it gives you this little moment to be able to decide what you want to do next. It gives you a choice. Let's see, another mind tool I have, I call it flip the switch or empowering question. So it's like there's a switch on your head and you want to keep the lights on. So it is emotion on purpose. It's emotion because adult brains, one of the only ways to create new neural pathways and create new habits quickly is a large motion. So a few of my tools involve large motions to get a new reaction happening in the brain and a new habit created. So it's like a switch is on your head and you're keeping it on. And I usually smile. I also look in my head and go, caught you, because it's like you're catching those negative voices chattering in there. Us artists tend to have a lot of those, very critical. You know, in the violin world and classical music world, the critiques are harsh, very harsh. And you just have to take it and you just have to keep getting better. And I had some really wonderful, very tough, tougher than any of my athletic coaches. My conducting professors and my violin professors were extremely hard. And so you learn, you learn from that. But those voices in my head of beating myself up for playing a wrong note, or I'll never forget, I played one wrong note in an audition once. And at the end, the three judges, they just stopped and said, you realize you played a B flat instead of a B natural. That I was done. Like I was done for one note. So every note matters. And so flip the switch helps you with those negative voices. And then I look in my head and I say, caught you. And then ask an empowering question, a question like, how can I solve this? And I love to put an adjective in too. I encourage adjectives for my clients, like, how can I solve this elegantly? Or how can I solve this easily? Or for example, I was playing a passage on my violin and I hit this one area and my voice in my head said, oh crap, you can't play that fast enough. You're going to ruin the performance. It was just instant down, right? And so I smiled. I looked up and I said, how can I solve this? How can I play this fast enough? How can I solve this beautifully? And I stood back from my music and I got a couple of ideas. I encourage you to like not force ideas, let them come organically up. Like if you're working on an art project, like, how can I solve this elegantly? And you just kind of let it flow. I didn't get the big message though until like 20, 30 minutes later when I was in my car. And it was like a lightning bolt went into my chest and said, you're screwing your bow too tightly. Release it 2 revolutions and you will play the passage just fine. Some lesson from 35 years ago from Jacob Krok-Malnik, who was Polish and Armenian, right? Heavy accent. I had a lot of accent professors. So it's like, oh my gosh, that's it. So, you'll get answers when you ask the right questions. If you ask the wrong questions, like, why am I so stupid? You'll get the answers to that one too, but they're not going to be helpful. They might allow you to, critique out some stuff, but when you ask an empowering question that powers you towards solution, it's really cool how that starts to spin. So that's a favorite tool of a lot of my clients is flip the switch. I'm going to go to a life design tool for everybody that I think is going to be really helpful because we're in a very competitive society and it's gotten worse with the phones and social media. You can see art in so many places now. Before you'd never see any of that, unless you actually drove or flew to a museum or whatever. But now we can see everything all the time. And this tool is called the Spirit of Contribution. So instead of competing, because the moment you enter into competition, there's a little tension because you could win, which is great, but you could lose, which is crappy. So you're now going to probably trigger fight or flight because of that. And now you're going to underperform.
Hmm.
And do you ever work on a project and like, you really want to give it your all, but you feel you're kind of holding back. Like you're holding back a piece of you. You're holding something back. Like I used to question that with my runners that I coach. Like, why do they always say, oh, I could have run faster? Like, why do we hold back? And I think the reason is that when we're competing, could win, great, lose, crappy. And now we're going to hold back and not go all the way to the end. Because if we were to give our all and our all wasn't good enough, that's too crushing. So we hold back to protect ourselves.
Hmm.
So spirit of contribution is an open hand where you're giving your gifts and talents freely with no fear of loss. I taught this to my violin students for decades. Like you're just all in and you're just giving your gifts and talents freely on the best you can on that day. You're not trying to be the best anymore. You're becoming your best, your unique best. Maybe your staccato is better than that person's legato. We don't have to compare anything. You know, you play your unique way and we just let that out. So I call that this open hand. I also habit stack. I know, it's beautiful. You can touch yourself. The open hand, I also habit stack this idea, which means when you do one thing, you can put something in at the same time. So it becomes a habit for you. When I go through doorways, and I catch myself when I don't do it too, like I'm like, oh crap, I didn't do it. But if I go through a doorway, I'll say to myself, like into an office, into my house, I'll say, how can I contribute?
Hmm.
Because I didn't used to. I used to come home and start complaining. And so I will just ask myself, well, how can I contribute? Whenever I go to watch one of my clients perform, I come into an auditorium or I go into a track meet or a hockey rink. I always think, how can I contribute? And the best way I can contribute is to sit in complete pressure-free stance,
Hmm.
just happy to be there, whether they're losing or winning, doesn't matter. If that child were to look up at me or that adult were to look up at me, what they would see is someone completely trusting in them, completely okay with whatever the heck is going on out there. And so I really stand for unconditional love and support. Like that's what my clients need and they don't get it enough. And so to know that somebody's in their court, that's like so powerful. My husband's sitting over there and I remember, and he told me he met me and he just hadn't met anybody like me. That was just like, wow, so loving, you know. I can't help
Yeah.
it. It's like just I can't help it. So that's like a part of my being, but also intentional now with what I do as a coach, for sure. So those are examples of 3 types of tools. Again, there's a whole repertoire because we're so unique. And you can just play with the concept and say, okay, what can I do in this 10 seconds here? That's plenty of time to keep the heart rate low. A long, slow breath in that period of time will keep your heart rate low. And one more thing because sometimes the art that we do, we're in kind of strange postures. Like my sons are videographers, and so sometimes their backs are all curled over and everything. So I want to share a little posture thing that I've learned from my private body coach, whose name is Leela Veronica. She's phenomenal. She's changed my life because violinists have horrible backs and shoulders. We're doing 2 different things, so we're really messed up. So the first step is to shoulders down into your ribs, just go really wide with your body and really open up your heart space. And that again is going to create more connection in your life when your heart is open. That client that I mentioned whose life has changed so much, he said, yeah, I mean, now he's like a magnet. People come to him. And he's been using this posture idea tremendously. So you go wide first. Instead of pinching your shoulders back, don't do that. Just go wide. And then with your butt, this is a little weird, but if you grab your glute muscles and pull them behind you, so they're rising up towards your spine, you shouldn't sit on your butt. You should sit on your leg bones, your femurs, your hamstrings, and let the butt rise up. If you're sitting doing your art, you're going to feel so much more power and your back isn't going to hurt. So widen, get on your get your glutes behind you. And, just every once in a while, check that head, that you're not over all the time, that you're getting it up to the horizon. Look out to the horizon now and then, because we get down on our work so much. Even if you're using easels, or like with my music stand, I get it really high so that I can keep that neck up as much as I can. So yeah, but that's just a little thing I was thinking would be really helpful to people. It doesn't matter what you do, work at a computer or whatever. There's a lot of computer art today for people. So get those glutes back and you'll feel just so much more powerful. Also, think about this. When you're sitting on your butt, if you had a tail, you'd be sitting on it. So think of a dog for a moment. When a dog is scared, it tucks its tail and its abs are tight. So when your abs are relaxed and your butt is back, you send a message through your nervous system, everything is okay. I'm a happy doggy. Everything is okay. So I want everybody to be happy doggies.
Yes, so good. And you mentioned, yeah, I guess that that you apply this in a way so that for the audience who signed up, that someone just started, and there's going to be all this wonderful, juicy
Yes.
wisdom to take in. So how do you suggest we approach? Okay, with an
Yes.
open heart, in good
Open heart.
posture.
Yeah, get your posture like this. And so as people, because there's, you're putting together such a beautiful show. Couple of things. One is that make sure you come with beginner's mind. I've been so guilty of this. I have one of those know-it-all brains, crap. And so to come with beginner's mind, you don't know what you might learn. And even if you disagree, like maybe you've disagreed with what I've said here, just stay open. Just stay open to it. And then if your belly's relaxed and you're in this frame and you haven't triggered fight or flight, you're going to think really well. You're going to be able to take in information and it's going to be usable for you now. But if you come in and you're like, oh crap, the Zoom's not working, or, tech stress is a real deal.
Real. It's real.
Or you've lost your phone like I just did because it was actually plugged into my charger. Why did I not look there? Right? So tech stress is a real thing. You want to, protect yourself from these stress hormones in any learning experience. And then you're just going to be able to take in so much more and enjoy it so much more because you won't be impatient. If you're busy or impatient, those are signs that you've triggered fight or flight. Oh, and one thing I didn't mention, this kind of a Debbie Downer, but if you trigger the stress response and you are a male, it takes up to 9 hours before your cells dissipate all the hormones out and you're back to normal. Well, that's a male's entire day working or night trying to sleep. It's a long time. But for females, it's an up to 24-hour cycle. That's why I refer to the stress cycle, because there are 2 floods of hormones going out at different times and keeping you locked in underperformance literally for hours, or maybe your entire life. I mean, when I learned that, I cried because I thought, when was I last clean of these hormones? Maybe age 2, but maybe never, because we were triggering in utero until 2010. And then my whole life changed.
Amazing.
It is amazing. It is, I don't know. It's why I've been put on the planet. Like, I've done a lot of things in my life, but this is the thing. And I never, like, every client I have is a gift, because even the client I mentioned, he goes, I have such a ripple effect. His whole sales team is now changing because his energy is changing the whole room. And he cruise on big yachts, like he cruise, and he's going to be able to affect that. Like, he plays hockey, like everywhere he goes, he's going to be influencing people. His own family, like his parents are different. It's wild what's going on. And it's because he put such a stake in the ground when he met me. He's like, I'm doing this. And I go, I can feel it. You are, you're committed. And so it's a beautiful thing to see. And my method isn't hard. I mean, I just explained it to you, but our reactions are really ingrained. And so I'm an infinitely patient coach. We're not in any rush, to make this happen. I've seen people, well, this particular gentleman in 4 days, he had his breakthrough day. He went the whole day and didn't trigger. Before that, the fastest I ever saw it was a 14-year-old girl who was in chronic anxiety for 2 full years, 2.5 weeks. She broke it. She went the whole
Wow.
day. And that's like hitting the reset button where your body gets to heal at night. Like if
Mm.
I showed you video and pictures of myself prior to 2010, I probably looked older then in some ways than I do now. Like it's really crazy, but my hands certainly. So I mean, I look at my hands sometimes, I can't believe they're 60 because I looked at such ugly hands for so long, painful too, right? So it's just been really, really fun to do this work. And I'm so glad that you had me come on here because I just want to unlock people's genius. Really. Every one of us is brilliant. And when someone says they're not creative, it's because the stress responses shut them down. Or some teacher said your artwork was stupid, or one little word from somebody telling you that you weren't an artist or you couldn't play. I've had students come and want to play violin with me where somebody told them they were terrible at it, but their
Mm.
whole life they wanted it. So they were like in college and they're beginning because they always wanted to play violin. And it's like, I'll help you. I'll show you. We'll get you to twinkle.
I love that. Yeah. And that you don't let any of this stop you or your vision
Yeah.
or any, like, yes, life can be very stressful. And there's steps that you can take to make, to feel more pressure free, to feel happier, to take on the challenge
Yeah,
more
you'll take
in
on
an
more challenges.
optimized way, right? Yeah, it's
It's so
beautiful.
true. That's so
And
cool you brought that forward. Yeah.
the physical manifestation, right, is like that's mind blowing just from your experience with your hands to how we relate to other people just based on our posture, all of it. So good.
Yeah.
Thank you for the work that you do and for
Oh, you're
sharing it
so
with us.
welcome. Yeah,
And you have a free gift. I
I
think that
do.
we'll link it to this video. Can you tell us about it a little bit?
Yeah. So I do a couple things for free. You can always have a one-on-one call with me, which is we're going to go deep on you. I want to learn about you so I can give you some specific things right up front that you can start to use. And that's a completely complimentary call. Um, and then I also have a free video series where we get really deep on like anxiety, on sleeplessness, on some of the money. Money is a big stressor. So on some of the really big stressors so that you can start to uncover what's going on with you and how are you reacting to certain things. And I give, in each one of those sessions, I give you tools so that it's very action oriented. And it's very like, I'm just sitting at my dining room table or standing there, like, just going for you, so it's very real. It's not polished or it's just real. Um, and so, yeah, so those, you can access them right on my website too, but I know I have a link for you too. So, but that's just my name, ellingalls.com. And if you ever forget that, you can remember pressure-free.com. So both of them will get you to the same place. And you'll see those two buttons. So whatever looks good for you, I'm so here for you. And I just really stand for people not suffering anymore, especially
Yeah.
from anxiety and just all the stress that is causing so much harm today. So I really stand for you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And before we let you go, what's something that you're working on these days that you're really excited about?
Oh my goodness. A couple things. So I'm working on a nonfiction book. I have the parenting book, and right now I'm writing The Pressure Free CEO. And I just got edits back from my editor, and I need to dive in and fix. But yeah, that is a leadership book. It's for business owners, CEOs. I really want to help prevent the wake-up call because I lost my dad to his second heart attack. Could have lost him at the first one, but he was a CEO of a bank. I was CEO of a symphony, and I'm CEO of my business. My boys are CEO of their company, so it really is a leadership book to help people stay healthy, and that keeps their teams healthier when the
Mm.
leader is healthy. So there's that project. And then I have these creative fiction projects that I'm working on, and a couple of short films that ideas are really flowing, and then devolving this big novel into 6 novels. One of the voices has been speaking very strongly to me for the past year and a half, about a year and a half, and the voice is just really, really strong. The main character of the big novel basically said, "You've painted me out to be not very nice at all, like a real jerk, and you need to tell my story, like my backstory." So this novel is like the whole backstory of this gentleman, which is kind of fun. So
So good. Wow. Talk about unleashing your creativity. Elle, thank you so much. Good luck. Best of luck with everything. And to our audience, remember to keep it creative and have a great day. Bye.
Bye.